morning, everyone. What a treat to be in a community of CX and EX professionals. You're wired outward focused, and that shows. Just the love you show for each other, the camaraderie, the joy to be around each other. You are absolutely my favorite people in the whole world, and thank you for spending some of your time with us here this week. You are welcome, you're wanted, and if you're new here, you're going to walk away with about 95 new friends, I promise you. So thank you for being here. Just want to reiterate what CXps is, who we are, why we do this with you. Our vision is that client experience becomes a core business function for all professional services firms. All of you have IT, you have HR, you have marketing, you have accounting and finance, and like, why in the world don't all of our companies in the industry have CX as a formal practice? So this is what our vision was when we started this back in 2015. So this is year 9, or a couple virtual years and kind of hybrid years along the way. But those of you who've been here, some of you have been since the beginning, and you guys are amazing. A lot of you have been back multiple years, so thank you very much for being here. We've got an incredible program this week. This is all made possible by our sponsors, so I do want to take a moment and thank all of our sponsors. Of course, CXps is brought to you by Client Savvy and our platinum sponsor, Uninet. They've been platinum sponsors, I think, 4 or 5 years in a row. They do a lot for this community. So Uninet does have a table out here. A few Uninet people. If you're from Uninet, can you raise your hand or stand up? Please, please, please go talk to the Uninet people. Say thank you. The experiences you have, all the extras, all the pluses at CXps are made possible by our amazing sponsors. Zweig Group and Technics are our gold sponsors. Technic has a table out here as well. Zweig will be around there speaking today. Make sure you see those people and say hi and thank you. I see Larry's over here, Larry and Nathan. I don't see the Zweig folks yet. I'm sure they'll be around. Our corporate sponsors, these are firms who continue to invest in CXps as industry practitioners. They send a lot of people. They contribute to the running of this. So I want to thank Withers Ravenel, SME, HFW, and our video sponsor, very generously provided by A&E Engineering. Accent Imaging is our print sponsor, and GK5 for our media sponsor. We'll be doing a live, 5A, sorry. We'll be doing a live a podcast later today with them. So you may get tagged to come jump by on a podcast sometime today. So you can hide if you see someone with a microphone and you're shy. What you need to know about CXps, if it's your first time here, we do things a little bit differently. Adult learning is something we're not in practice for anymore. Sitting through sessions and taking notes isn't always the best way for us to learn. So we try to break some things up. We do have some standard breakouts. I mean, they're standard in format. They're not standard in content and caliber of speaker. I assure you they're all amazing. We'll have some big ideas in this main room. Those are more TED Talk style, short format, a focused big idea topic. We have some industry sessions. A lot of you are here looking for solutions and tools and resources to help you on your CX journey. So there are some solution providers here. Please go see their sessions as well. And our workshops are long format, 2.5 hours. These are hands-on. You're going to be working on a skill. You'll be working on your business. You're going to be doing something very practical. So instead of taking a bunch of notes and then going back to the office and feeling like, what was that amazing thing I learned? You'll actually be working on your business or developing a skill, working with your peers. So it's a great opportunity to build practical knowledge that you can take back to your organization and put into practice if you're not working on your business in the workshop itself. And some of the workshops you're working on your business. So you're coming back not with notes, but coming back with some actual plans and strategies already tailored for your business. So since those workshops are a bit long, we will have each of the workshop facilitators give you a 1 or 2 minute pitch from up here so you don't get stuck with the Ben Stein and you're like, oh man, I picked the wrong session. I'm stuck for 2.5 hours. Not that any of our presenters are that, but I've heard every year, it's like, yeah, I read the program and I was going to go to this one, but then I saw her and I just had to go to that session. So we really want to make sure you get put into the right spot where you're going to find great content. We do also, for those who maybe need to take a call or need a little bit of a break, we do have concurrent with the workshops. You can choose either 1 or 3 workshops, or there's back-to-back breakouts. So if you don't want to do a workshop, or if you need like an hour to get some stuff done, don't want to walk into a workshop halfway through, we are giving you a couple of options so you can manage that. And then last year we did something new. We did a CX excursions on Wednesday night where small groups went out, had an experience together. And then Thursday, for the Thursday workshop, spent 2.5 hours diagnosing the workshop, mapping journeys, all the skills that you're going to learn this week. It gives you a practical outlet to go do that. Mike, are you here? Did you bring it? Yeah, all right, look at Mike, everybody. Last year, we went to Build-A-Bear. Took a group to Build-A-Bear. And it was amazing, it was fun. Mitch, do you still have your bear?
Sure do.
Sure do. Tammy, do you have your bear? Yeah, so I still have mine, sits on my shelf at home. We had an amazing experience. Who knew a bunch of grown-ups could go build teddy bears and have an amazing and emotional experience? So we do have some incredible experiences designed for you. Sponsored by Technic is All is Fair in Cheese and Charcuterie. So this is a charcuterie making class and competition, and of course you get to eat it when you're done. So if you're a foodie, sign up for that one. Some of you are dealing with some stress, so there's a Wreck-It room. It's like you just get like big hammers and you get some protective gear, and we've paid for like big items, so you get to like smash the laser printer and those kinds of fun things. So if you need an outlet to get rid of some energy, go to the Wreck-It room. The other end of the spectrum, if you just need some serenity and calm, there's a salt room meditation experience. You'll have a guided tour to just relax in a salt room for 45 minutes. We have a candlelight Mozart concert. If you're the kind of person who runs late, do not sign up for that one because the bus leaves right at 5:30 on Wednesday night. If we're late getting there, they won't let us in. So be timely if a candle in the wind is yours. And then we have an augmented reality VR gaming thing. So I'm real curious to see what the group experience is like while we're all like covered up with glasses in our own virtual world. So some really interesting experiences. These are, maybe they're going to be awesome, maybe they're not. I know one of the groups last year, the Build-A-Bear group was awesome, the other group was not, and we both learned a lot and were able to put some of those things into practice. So sign up for those. You do need to sign up before you leave today. So there's sign-up sheets out here. Get your name on it. Some of these do have limited capacity, so I encourage you to sign up early. We're also going to have a Put Me In Coach sign-up sheet. So if you're indecisive, if you like random chance, or if you want a random experience, we may end up, depending on the sign-ups, adding a 6th experience. We've got a couple in our back pocket. So if you don't want to commit, but you want to go do something, sign up for the Put Me In Coach, and we will put you somewhere where you're wanted, or somewhere as a 6th option. We do have a couple others, so sign up for those, please. And Jamie will email all of you Wednesday morning confirming your assignment. Some of these have some requirements like the Smash It room. There's waivers you have to sign, things like that. If you did not bring closed-toed shoes, please don't sign up for the Smash It room. They will turn you away and you'll be disappointed. So all of the requirements for any of these are at the sign-up sheet, so you can check your requirements and make sure you do, or you will be able to fully participate. So this morning, what I like to do every year is just walk you through a couple of the trends in CX. You know, I've got the advantage of working with hundreds of professional services firms across the country. I get to see a lot of things that maybe some of you don't get to see since I'm working at all of your businesses and other businesses. So what are some of the trends that we're seeing? And I've got 3 today that we're going to talk through. The emergence of AI, some observed trends that we've measured, And we'll spend most of our time today on recession impacts. So the impact of AI and CX and professional services. Those of you who've been here before know that we like having interactive conversations. This is an experience conference, so part of the experience is your knowledge. So pull out your cell phones. How often do you have a keynote speaker tell you to get your cell phones out? So scan this code up here, or if you don't want to scan the code, you can go to pollev.com and type in CXps. And we're going to do some live polling here. We've got one quick one here, and we'll do several later on and all throughout the event. All right, looks like everyone's about ready. So, how is our firm approaching AI? We haven't started exploring AI yet. Few people have begun experimenting. We have a formal AI pilot or task force in place, and we're using AI in production already. All right. So there's a couple that are playing with AI. Sounds like the majority have someone somewhere taking a look at it at least. We keep hearing about AI changing the world. Well, just look at the adoption curve. This chat GPT thing that we all keep hearing about got to 1 million users in 5 days. Chat GPT has only been on the market 5.5 months, and already it's one of the largest tech trends out there. So I, playing with this, I asked ChatGPT to generate 3 slides of a keynote speech delivered to an audience of engineers, architects, lawyers, and accountants. The topic of the slides is how AI will disrupt customer experience and professional services. And it spit out 3 competent slides with some great talking points. I asked it, one of the talking points was around customization, personalizing services. I said, can you give an example of using AI for personalizing services in an architecture firm? And it spit out, an architecture firm can use AI to personalize the design process for clients. By analyzing data on a client's previous projects, preferences, and needs, our firm can use machine learning algorithms to recommend design elements that align with the client's style and vision. For example, if a client prefers a minimalist design aesthetic, the firm can use AI to suggest materials, colors, and textures that align with that preference. That's pretty interesting, right? Now that's what Client Savvy started with 19 years ago. Our first failed product was trying to figure out all of the things a client wanted you to do. What should we do was the question we were asking. And we had to ask way too many questions to catalog everyone's preferences. AI can certainly do that a whole lot faster. But just pretty interesting. This answer comes out and it's like, oh, I remember that business. That's the one we started 19 years ago before we had to pivot into the CX space. So it's just really interesting. And our product owner, Yana, is here. There she is, Yana. She's really interested and passionate about CX, and she's been telling me I need to do CX. And after this experience, I was having a conversation with her, and I said, well, I guess this is just like Excel or Salesforce. It's another app that I'm going to have to learn how to use. She goes, no, Ryan, this is the internet. And I felt kind of old and a little bit chastised in that moment. But it was one of those paradigm shift statements that I realized she's right. This isn't another app that we're going to figure out how to use. AI it's the internet. It's a paradigm shift. I mean, just think about what it's done in 5 months and how much it's changing the world. I was at a conference last week, sitting at a table at the networking function with the CEO of a 1,200-person construction services company. And the conversation turned to AI, and he goes, yeah, I kind of heard about this a little bit, and so I suggested to my team that we look into it. And my director of marketing says, Michael, we're already there. We uploaded 400 proposals to ChatGPT and had to analyze how we generate or how we write proposals. And so for the last 2 months, we've cut our proposal production time by 75% because ChatGPT is building our proposal frameworks for us based on our last 400 proposals. I mean, from 5 months between being released to the marketplace as a brand new technology to cutting 75% out of your production time and your proposals, that's game changer. That's pretty amazing. Greg Killstrom's going to be speaking this week on AI, so I don't want to spend too much more time on this because I know he's going to be covering it, but the less time we spend on proposals, the more time we can spend on customization, personalization, humanizing our services. The other thing I've been using AI for is if I'm going to write a blog post, I ask ChatGPT to write it, and then I write something else, because if ChatGPT can write it, maybe it's not as creative as I thought it would be. Some observed industry trends. We're going to do a lot more of this polling here. We did this last year, so we're going to do some year-on-year trending here. I'm curious, this audience today, how many of you have CX officially in your title? Chief Experience Officer, Chief Customer Officer, Director of Client Experience, something along those lines. All right. So still a minority are official or dedicated CX professionals, but it's a much larger minority than last year. Last year we were at 65%, where it's part of my job, but not part of my job title. So one of the big trends I said last year was the CXO was the fastest growing job title in American business. So seeing in just a year we've gone from 65% not having a CX title to 55%. That's a trend I think we'll continue to see as we go. Where is your firm on its CX journey? All right. So 6% exploring, 17% with a mature, robust program, and that's about the same as we saw last year. We regularly collect and act on formal, objective client feedback. It's about a 60-40 split. Last year we were about the same. We regularly map or document experiences and or journeys. So it's interesting to me that here we are in a community that's really passionate about CX, and some of the fundamentals are still in the early adoption phase in this industry. And if we're at, 75% in this room not mapping journeys, think about what it is outside there in the marketplace. So great insights to recognize how much room there is for innovation and differentiation through the power of CX. It's about the same last year. CX thinking is enculturated across our organization. So it's interesting to see that we feel like the culture of CX is more prevalent than some of the practice or some of the tools of CX, which means there's likely fertile ground to push some of your organizations. So if you're saying true to this, but you said no to some of the last two questions, you might have a little bit more flexibility and runway to push your organization to do more with CX adoption. Let's see. So that was a pretty big change. 42% this year, 32% last year. That's a good trend. You guys are doing great work getting the messaging out and communicating the value proposition. How about some of the business metrics? Compared to 2021, our 2022 revenue, did we grow faster, keep pace, or grow slower than our peer group? Yeah, it's no surprise to me that CX-driven companies are, by and large, growing faster than their peers. Looks like you guys did better this last year than the year before. It's great. How about your 2022 profit? Was it higher than industry average, comparable to industry average, or were you lagging behind? So we will make these slides available, so any of you who are trying to push CX across your organization, if you need some evidence that CX-driven organizations are higher performing financially, so you can share that with your board and maybe convince them to move forward. Some great data to show. And again, it looks like those numbers are moving in a positive direction. How about your proposal pursuit success rate? Are you outperforming? Are you in line? Or are you lagging behind? All right. It's about the same as last year. And how about your employee turnover, 2022 employee turnover? So in this case, lower than your peers is better. You want lower turnover. So maybe we haven't quite made the connection between CX and employee retention yet. We have our highest ratio of EX and talent sessions this year of any CXps in the past, because what we've heard from the marketplace is still finding and retaining talent is the #1 challenge. So we've got a lot of expertise on that this year to help you make some progress on that. That's almost exactly the same as it was last year. So there's some room for us to grow as a community in the employee retention. Some other trends that we're seeing, we've partnered with a group called Wilson Allen. They do a lot of integrated data analytics. They can take whatever data you have, mash it all together into a big data lake and run AI and machine learning and other algorithms to start pulling out trends. And they looked at 10 years of our client feedback data and mapped it to the S&P 500 and found that our patented 1 to 7 sentiment scale in our client feedback tool has a 0.44 correlation to the S&P 500. NPS only has a 0.16 correlation to the NPS 500. So what's happening is when capital markets are improving, your client sentiment is going up. And when capital markets are declining, your clients are more sensitive to gaps or failures in the client experience. So what does this mean? What does this tell us? One, when the market's going up, we can't take credit or as much credit for happy clients. And likewise, when the markets are going down and we start seeing some negative sentiment increase, maybe we don't take the blame. Our feedback mechanism measures expectations. Expectations are relative to a lot of external factors, not just internal factors. So there's external market forces that are moving and impacting our clients, and those external forces are impacting their perceptions, their expectations, and their experience. So there are some larger macro trends going on out there. It also tells us that we can begin to anticipate pain. When we start seeing a market in decline, if the S&P is going down, we can likely start to anticipate our clients are going to be more sensitive. They're going to be a little more worried. They're going to be a little more cautious or risk adverse. They're going to be a little shorter with their patience. And so that's some new information that we've been able to synthesize just to help us organizationally know what's going on in the marketplace and stay a step ahead of our clients. Another interesting piece, one of the key reasons why the correlation wasn't higher is the markets just continually go up and your feedback scores can only go a certain level before you can't go any higher. So that's just a caveat to think about when looking at those. So it's really more of those micro trends or those bumps and blips in the S&P that we want to be looking at. So another thing that we can do if sentiment scores have a 0.44 correlation to the S&P and sentiment scores have a 0.63 correlation to NPS, really the market can serve as a leading indicator for where your Net Promoter Score is going to go. Net Promoter is more of a trailing score, so the market, your client feedback tool scores, those of you using client feedback tool, those are a little bit more in sync. If you start seeing those go down, you can anticipate down the road some drop in your Net Promoter Score for those of you who are tracking those things. So you can kind of connect the dots. The S&P will loosely predict Net Promoter movement. I've got several of you asking, why is the industry Net Promoter Score going up? Why is it going down? And now we have an answer. You can look at some of these larger macro indicators. Who here's business is very tightly tied to capital markets? If you're in design, construction, interest rates go up, that makes projects more expensive, makes funding more expensive. You can start seeing why this room, the people in this room, would be a little more connected to some of those macro indicators. So those capital markets impact our clients' capital sensitivity. Again, some research with Wilson Allen analyzing the millions of data points that we've collected. The ability to stay in budget is the top variable in the likelihood to recommend over the last 12 months. We keep hearing threats about the coming recession. People are talking about the coming recession. I'll be talking about it in just a couple minutes myself. Your clients are all hearing that same talk, and so they're moving from a money's cheap, let's move fast, into more of a cautious risk aversion mode. So we need to be thoughtful about that's the trend that's happening in the marketplace. Your clients are becoming more budget sensitive and more risk adverse, and how are we going to manage that? How are we going to help them change from a move mentality into a risk aversion mentality? And if we're not helping them make that transition, if we're not tailoring our services and our experience to them, they're probably going to feel like we don't understand them and they're not heard. And a year ago, they may have been telling you, just go fast, I don't care what it costs. And now they're starting to tell us something different. Third project we did with Wilson Allen this year, looking at recent trends and feedback. They did a massive comment sentiment analysis where every comment every client left to any of you using the client feedback tool was graded based on sentiment and sentiment analysis. And then we looked at the firms using the client feedback tool and ranked them based on the most positive comments or sentiment subjectively to the least. And that list very nearly matched our rankings for the Client Experience Award that we'll be talking about at lunch today. So just further evidence that good measurement systems, if you have good tools in place to measure sentiment numerically, it's very closely matching to the actual sentiment in words that people are using. So neat to see that there's tight correlation between the numerical scores and the actual sentiment of what clients are saying. And the final trend I'll talk about today is that a recession is coming. This will be different than any previous recession, or exactly the same. Depends what pundit you're talking to. I love economics and political history and theory, and I've got my own ideas, but they're my own ideas. I'm not going to bore you with that. I don't know what to tell you is going to happen. What we can say is that when the recession happens, whether it started, whether it's pending, whether it's a couple years from now, clients will be in pain. Doesn't matter what it is, what kind it is, an inverted, a crosswise, a purple and yellow polka dot recession, our clients are going to be in pain. And it's our job to help them through that pain. And I got some case studies today that I want to walk you through. pulled out of the dustbin from some projects I did back in 2009. So who remembers 2009? Who wants to do that again? Is this what the future feels like? This is what I see out in the marketplace. All your competitors are just out there driving down the road, going as fast as they can while the money's good, and they know there's a bridge out down the road somewhere. And they don't know exactly where it is. They know it's out, but you know what? Hell, I'm just going to push the gas pedal down and go while I can. And then whoosh, off the cliff they go. And that's what they did in 2009. That's what they did in 2000, 2001. It's what they did in, what was the one before that, 93. Have you guys been through like 3 or 4 recessions with the firm and seen them do the same thing every time? So we know it's coming. Why are we going to lead our firms off the cliff again? It sucks buying a new truck every time you drive off the cliff, right? In the 2008-2009 recession, 38% of firms were pricing work below cost at least half of the time just to keep people busy. 17% of employees got laid off in the AEC industry. It sucked. So let's not do that again. We know what's going to happen. We know our clients are going to have less to spend. We know our competitors are going to lower their prices. We know they're going to cut salaries. They're going to go to 80% work weeks with 80% pay. We know those things are going to happen. That's the standard playbook. And everyone just suffers through it, and everyone's in pain. And the hard part about that is you start laying off people. You get so focused on your own pain, you forget about your client's pain. And so now you're taking even less care of your clients, and they're even less likely to give you the work that you so desperately need. So I'm going to share some stories that some really innovative firms did, and I want you, as you're going about these next couple of days, not just to be here and be present learning about CX and EX, but really start thinking through what are the strategies I'm hearing this week that we can use to prepare our firm to be better for the next recession, to respond to the recession differently, to build our firm to be successful. So where are we today? You don't have to read all this. As a wide group, I stole this slide from Phil. He's going to be sharing this slide later today, so you'll see it in his session. But inflation's 41-year high, labor pool 45-year low, the construction industry 1.7 trillion in revenue is a record, AE is at a record, backlog is at a record, 34% up off of the last historic high. The federal funds rate, largest rate hike in the last 28 years. A 30-year mortgage, is the highest it's been in 14 years. The stock market's a bear market. Consumer sentiment's at an all-time low. Unemployment's at a 53-year low. So that's the environment that we're in. I know some of you are legal, accounting, other industries. Zweig is an AEC, so I stole this just as an example. AEC seems to be the canary in the coal mine since they're so heavily exposed to the capital markets. They're usually the ones that start hitting first, and then the others seem to follow. Looking at unemployment and recessions, every time employment drops, you see that gray line where there's a contractionary period. So doesn't matter what the pundits say, just look at the last 60 years of history. There's a cycle, there's a pattern. Maybe it'll be different this time, but I don't want to gamble my firm on maybe. I want to be ready for the likely. And if it never goes bad, we just got better. So let's assess, where are we today? You got some worksheets on the table in front of you. Take a couple minutes here, and let's do an assessment. And I forgot to grab one for myself so I can read it too. Let me grab one of these. Thank you. Good morning. All right. So this top row, what we're going to do is looking at our key clients. Do they, A, give more work to our competitors than to us? B, do they give us almost all of their work? Or C, we get more of their work than anybody else, but less than half overall. Second row, our competitors win over us because A, their fees are lower, B, their value proposition is higher, or C, because we don't always have the capacity to take their work. Third row, our best clients only buy 1 or 2 services from us, only work with 1 PM, team, or rainmaker, or C, they buy multiple services and or work with several PMs or lawyers or accountants, whatever your phrase is there. Fourth row, our growth is driven mostly by expanding into new markets and geographies, mergers and acquisitions, selling more to our existing clients. Next row, our key rainmakers work autonomously with little zippering of key relationships. Are near retirement age or past retirement age and just not leaving. And share, or do they share revenue generation responsibility? Next row down, our leaders are complacent because the work just keeps coming. Are they chasing any opportunity they see? Or are they focused on ideal revenue from ideal clients? We're almost done here. Are BD and seller doers? Do they operate in silos with little consistency between? Are your seller doers dependent on a few senior people to maintain personal relationships? Or do you have a clearly articulated CX strategy to create value for clients? In the last row, your revenue, is it primarily competitively pursued? Highly concentrated in a few key accounts? Or is it primarily negotiated, no bid? So what you do from here, that first column, if you have any check boxes in that first column, count the number of check boxes, multiply by 2, and in this box right down here, put down your score 2 times every check box. The middle column is 1 point for every check, and the third column, it's minus 1 point for every check. Then if we add those 3 boxes up, you get your resiliency score, which is in that yellow box. So does anyone have a score over 10 on the list? No? Not surprising in this room. All right. How about over 5? Any scores over 5? Okay. All right. So if your scores are positive, if you're up over 5, there's a lot of risk vectors in your business. And any of those first column check boxes, those are some things you might want to bring up and share with leadership and say, hey, these are some risk vectors. If our, in that first box, if our clients are giving more work to our competitors than to us, when the recession comes and they have less work to give, who's going to get it? If they have less work to give out, who are they going to cut from? They're probably going to cut from their second, third tier vendors. They're not going to cut from their favorite vendors. So if you have less than the largest share of your client's wallet, you're at a little bit more risk. Likewise, the second one, if your client gives you almost all of the work they have, that might feel really good. And from a CX perspective, having 100% share of wallet is great. But that means if they have less work to give out, who's going to lose? Your firm is going to lose, because if your client has less work to give, it's not that they don't love you or they're giving it to a competitor. They just have less work to give. So that's a risk in the business you need to be aware of. So you're maybe most buffered if you're their number one vendor, but not the only vendor doing that kind of work for them. Because as they start giving out less and less work, they're going to concentrate it. Or if you've differentiated through CX, then they can leave more of that work with you, and the cuts will happen to your competitors instead. So that's how you would use this worksheet. So feel free to take this back to your teams and go through this exercise, have a conversation with your leaders to assess the risk in your business. Is there anyone that's got like a -5 score? Any -5s? Okay. Cool. All right. So if your score is in the negative, you likely have a pretty well-insulated business. You're likely already in a strong position to be able to navigate the recession well. Take a sigh of relief, but let's not get complacent. So our job with client experience is to create and capture value, and what creating and capturing value looks like in a recessionary environment is different for our clients than in a normal environment. So a couple of case studies I'll share about some firms who rolled out the red carpet for their clients, really used CX as a tool to navigate a recession. So I want to talk about a 45-person land development company up in Richmond, Virginia. They were very heavily exposed in subdivisions. You know what that kind of work looked like in 2009? I mean, no one was building houses in 2009. Their market absolutely tanked. And there was a gentleman there by the name of Chris who mistook the reduced work coming in from his clients that he was too expensive. There was less work coming in. He thought maybe there was a problem. And so he never said no to a client. He just kept doing. He was terrified of losing. So this poor guy is working 70-hour weeks. He's missing his kids' soccer matches, losing money left and right because he's underpricing his work, just trying to keep the work. It's what it feels like in a recession, and that just, without a bigger context, that's what a lot of your people might tend to do. So what did he do? Well, he verified his value creation. He started asking for feedback from his clients more often. Come to find out, the clients loved him. They weren't giving him less work because there was a problem. They were giving him less work because they had less work to give. So he was able to then align his effort and his cost to better meet expectations with the client. Having the confidence that the client still loved him and just had less work to give, he started pricing his work the way it needed to be priced. He wasn't competing against anyone else. He was competing against himself and misinterpreting declining work as encroaching competitors, and that's not what the story was. And brought his margins from 3% to 17% in 6 months in a recession. And he wasn't working 70-hour weeks. He was going to his kids' soccer games. I mean, you talk about a healthier, happier human being who's also being more productive both for his firm and his shareholders while also delivering a great experience for his clients. So you're going to see a lot of indicators. There's going to be a lot of scary numbers when your firm is going through a recession. Revenues might decline, margins might decline, a pipeline might shrink. So let's not misinterpret what that information means and then start making fear-based decisions like all of your competitors are going to do. If you're really deeply understanding your clients, if you know what motivates them, if you know how they're feeling, if you know that they're happy, if you know that they love you, then you can partner with your clients through the recession for a win-win outcome rather than acting in a fear-based way, which only weakens you and then ultimately undermines your ability to deliver value to the client. Phillips Architecture, the firm that we grew out of 19 years ago, commercial interiors. Commercial interiors took a nosedive. Fewer leases were being signed. So what did they do? Well, Phillips Architecture's business was usually working for the landlords who owned or managed buildings. And the landlords would bring in potential tenants, and Phillips would design or test fit them into the space, and the tenant would be shopping a couple of different options. So different landlords or different buildings would be trying to fit the tenants in. So part of Phillips' service was making the space look like it would fit so the landlord could get a deal signed. So they redesigned their office to be a sales office for landlords. The better the tenant felt like they fit, the more likely they were to sign a lease. And so the landlord, who was the client of Phillips Architecture, would bring their client, the tenant, to Phillips Architecture. So Phillips made it a sales office. They moved the majority of their fee to contingency. So we'll get paid when you get the deal signed. That made it easier for landlords to invest in making sure the tenant fit in the space as well as possible. They started collecting feedback not just from their client, but from their client's client. They were collecting feedback from the tenants themselves to make sure the tenant was having a great experience going through the test fit process. They were sharing that with their landlords and incorporating that into their client management. When everyone else was working 80% weeks with 80% pay, they were doing 5 hours of mandatory overtime to invest in some of these strategies to over-deliver for clients. And they finished the year with a 19% net margin in 2009. They gave bonuses. They just rethought the fundamental problem. The problem was our clients aren't closing deals. That's why we're not getting as much work. So how do we help our clients close more deals? And we'll get all the work in the world. And the cool part about that was that, it only took a couple years for the market to come roaring back. The Fed dropped interest rates. All of a sudden, capital markets exploded. People were trying to build. Who was the only firm in town that had capacity to get all that work done? So think about that. If your competitors are laying people off because they're scared and their revenue is going down and they're cutting costs, there's a tremendous amount of talent that you can't find right now that's going to be made available on the marketplace. And the more we can position ourselves and build our business to go capture some of that amazing talent, we're going to have the expertise and the bench depth and the capacity so that when the market recovers, we're going to take way more of that recovery than our competitors will. So it's not just, shrinking less than our competitors, but it's enabling faster growth on the recovery side. There's no better opportunity to position yourself and accelerate as a firm relative to your competitors than the back end of a recession. And if you can maintain your expertise, your bench, and your capacity when the market recovers, you're going to take all of that work. FTI, they told the story a couple of years ago here. Large specialty contractor, very commoditized service. They had an unfocused client list. They had limited cross-selling. They wanted to fire 80% of their clients and focus on their top 20%. Especially going through a recession, everyone's just trying to be cheap. Everyone's trying to cut corners. We got too many clients who just want us to be cheap. We want to work for the good clients who value what we do. So the red carpet solution, they created an ideal client profile to target their best clients. They aligned internal teams using client feedback. Hey, if we're going to fire 80% of our clients and only focus on 20%, that left a lot of employees who didn't have clients anymore. That's scary. So they started using feedback so that cross-functional teams could manage the client. And if one of my clients is the one being kept, but now I've got 3 people also working for the client, and it's more than I've managed before, I can make sure they're doing a good job for their client. It created a trust cycle internally. This is about reducing the fear of losing clients and reducing the fear of cross-selling, letting other people into my relationship. They identified who their raving fans were, and of those ideal clients, who was happiest, and they started using that to cross-sell some of the additional services that they provided. And in the course of 3 years, they grew 250% and moved their margin up 35%. So they went from like 3,800 clients to 1,400 clients, and they grew 2.5 times with higher margins. So going through a recession, it's kind of a contrary idea. We need as much work as we can. Why would we let go of clients? Well, it's because you're letting go of the wrong kind of clients who aren't buying value, who are just trying to get you to cut your cost to ease their pain. So instead, focus on the clients that value you, really lean in on them, and while everyone else is cutting, you're the ones leaning in to really differentiate and help your clients get through the recession in a meaningful way. So that's my question to you. Are you ready to lead the charge? Are you guys ready for the recession? Hopefully these ideas will spark some hope that you in this room can lead your firms forward in a way that's different. And when things get hard, you're not up at night worried and anxious about, are we going to make it? You're waking up in the morning with some fresh ideas like, oh man, this recession's going to kill my competitors. What an opportunity for us to do something different. Thank you very much. Welcome to CXps. Have a wonderful week.